And we're live. Welcome to the next edition, the next episode of the Personal Practice Builders Society weekly TV tips and strategy show. And if I could make that title any longer, it would be 15 minutes. If you wondered why we were on at 8:02 tonight instead of 8 at the hour, I was trying to figure out how to make this title much longer and just keep talking so I could hear myself talk and make my co-host and and our guest tonight, who's waiting in the wings, laugh. There we go. I'll finally take a breath.
Breathe, man. Holy smoke.
Anyway, welcome to the Professional Practice Builder Society Tips and Strategy Show. I'm here with my co-host, Dr. Mark Kosman. Say hi to the folks, Dr. Mark.
Hello, folks.
Wait a minute, that was way too short for you. So
I know I was distracted because I had to mute my my stream. Otherwise, I was going to be listening to myself in tape delay here. So yes. Anyway, welcome. Yes, my name is Dr. Mark Kosman. Thank you for the intro, Chris. And we are talking about the IDAP system tonight, right?
Yes, exactly. And for those of you who joined us on our monthly public webinar that happens on the first Thursday of the month, you'll understand that the IDAP system stands for, let me see if I can remember it. Oh, wait a minute. We came up with an acronym to make it easy to remember. It stands for Identify, Define, help me out here.
Articulate, and package.
There you go, Dr. Mark. So identify, define, articulate, and package. And this week, we're going to focus on the I in IDAP, which is identify your ideal client's problem or problems, right, Dr. Mark?
Absolutely. So just to kind of recap and catch you up in case you are new to our show and new to the system that we're teaching here for folks who are trying to build a professional practice. We've talked a lot about taking the time to really make sure you're building a practice around what you're passionate about. You've taken the time to really dig deep into understanding who your ideal client is, and then a big component of the reason that you're spending time really getting clear on who your ideal client is to understand the pain and the problems that they experience in their lives that relate to the problems you solve with your expertise. Now we start to get somewhere, right? You see how these pieces start to kind of snap together and get you somewhere. And so now we're talking about, as you have gotten that profile sort of developed of who that ideal client is, you're starting to really hone in now on the content creation process, because we're going to build content around problems, because that's what people care about. We don't expect them to know who we are or care about us or care about our expertise. They already care about their pain and the problems they're experiencing. So if you create information and you identify that problem, now you've got their attention. Now they can learn about the fact that you're an expert. So it's all about the problem. So that's just my quick recap.
Yeah, exactly. And the interesting part is I attempt to fix my collar. And the viewers of this show get all these behind the scenes look. Maybe one day I'll have to talk to the executive producer. Oh, wait a minute, that's me, about taking the shot a little differently when I need to fix my shirt. But anyway, here's the thing. As a quick side note, one of the questions I've been getting a lot is, wait a minute, you always talk about people not caring about us, but wait a minute, we're human beings. We want them to care about us. And
Sure.
But what I want to tell our audience is this. Eventually, people will care about you. But remember, when your foot hurts or when your shoulder hurts or when you're having a problem, you really don't, I'll say, care about the provider who's going to help you. That's not the first thought in your mind. The first thought in your mind is, how do I fix whatever problem I have going on, and how do I relieve my own pain? So when we talk about, look, people don't care about you, they care about their problem, that's really what we mean. They will eventually care about you. They will grow to love you.
That's an excellent point, Chris. Because that's the thing. We're not saying that your current clients don't love you and don't care about you. It's that we're talking about your marketing, where you're trying to attract new prospects to your practice. They don't know anything about you yet. They don't know to search for you yet. And most of us in the world of building professional practices don't have the kind of marketing budget it would take to really do brand marketing, where you're trying to get people to know your name as a brand name ahead of time and say, oh yeah, Dr. Oz can do brand marketing, right? Because he's got a platform that allows him to do that. You and I are not going to create that kind of platform without millions of dollars in marketing budget. So this is a strategic plan where we're saying, no, by identifying the problem that your ideal client has, we're now reaching out to the client where they already know to search, because they know the problem. They don't know you as a brand, and so we get them to discover you and fall in love with your expertise and want to work with you. But the tip of the iceberg, essentially, of creating great content for them to find when they search is problem-centric. It's problem-based. So by making that problem list and saying, all right, now which one do I want to start with first? What is a problem that I can identify, that I clearly know that my ideal audience has? And that's the I of identify. It's the first step before you jump in to start create stuff, or write your next blog post, or create your next social media post, or create your great video. You want to know, what am I going to create it about? And you want to create it about, at least partially about, the problem, and then lead them to the pathway of the rest of the IDAP system that we'll be talking about in the next couple of shows.
Yeah, so to kind of, I'll say, rein this back in a little bit, kind of got,
That's your job, Chris. Rein us in.
There we go. I'm sitting here. I've got the stirrups in my hand, or whatever
the reins. They got the reins. That's why
got the reins. There we go. So I got my hands out in front of me. Got the there we go. Reins in my hand. Here we go. There we go. We'll rein this back in. The first part of tonight's show, we wanted to illustrate why it is so important to identify your ideal client's problems. And coming from a professional practice builder and somebody who struggled mightily with this many, many years ago, because I felt my message could get out to everybody, and I felt everybody was my ideal client. And I really didn't have to focus on their problem, because once they heard the message, they would just, it would be like sheep, and they would come. And from going through that myself, I can tell you that there's a 1 in a million shot that you just have this great message that it's kind of like, you don't have to worry about their problem. You just go out and do it, and they just come. If you don't have that 1 in a million, which, if you're the other 999,999 of us, okay, you need to really identify their problem. It becomes a big key. In fact, it's interesting. Let's get a little bit into how to identify their ideal problem, because Dr. Mark, you and I have been sitting actually talking about this very thing and some of the things that we're working on. And we've spent, I'm not going to sugarcoat this, guys and gals, we spent hours, and now we love to talk, so that might skew it a little bit. But
it might.
just a smidge.
Well, Chris, we talked for 9 hours across 2 days about this issue.
But the fact of the matter is that, would you rather, and I'll say this to the audience, would you rather put in 9, or even, maybe 9 hours, or maybe a couple of weeks, really defining an ideal client's problem, so that you can go out, and there is a concept to fail quickly, and this is kind of like, figure out what your initial problem is, and then take it to the market, and then fail quickly. But if you don't spend the time to figure out what that problem is, you're going to be failing quickly and not really know if you're failing quickly in an area where you should or shouldn't be. In other words, you're not going to have the empirical, let me take a step back and let me stop confusing this. At this point, Dr. Mark, you and I are working through some ideal client problems on our own that I'm confident when we take to market, we're going to know fairly quickly if we've nailed it or not. But that's because we've spent the time, and because we've kind of chopped a few things out, because we've started to figure it out. So let's give the folks, we still have about 6-7 minutes left, but let's really give the folks something they can take away with. Let's give them at least one thing that they can concretely take home today and start identifying their ideal clients' problems. Sure. What would the first thing for them to do would you suggest?
The absolute simplest thing you can obviously do is, look at your existing clients and say, of the clients that I really enjoy working with, what specific presenting problems did that client come in the door with? I mean, obviously, if this is an ideal client who literally had that problem, you want to replicate that client. You want more people like this client. If it's serving your practice well, if you're solving that problem well, if you've got a happy client, customer, patient coming out of the focus on that problem, and you say, yeah, I want more people with this issue because I'm really good at resolving this issue. So starting with your existing client base, having done that sort of inventory of the clients you're working with, and looking at your notes, looking at the work that you've done, say, what was that initial phone call about? What was that initial email? Whatever their point of entry was, what was the initial language they literally used to say, hey, do you do this? Do you solve this? I mean, literally, that if you're in the healthcare world, it's like, what's the presenting problem? What did they present with? The other is to then essentially this model that you've been building from existing clients and mapping out who you want to work with. It also comes from your skill set. And, I mean, like I've said any number of times, we can all solve a lot of problems, but there are certain problems that we love to solve, that we're really, really good at solving. So that they go onto your problem list as well. So you don't need a million problems. You don't need just one problem. You don't have to pigeonhole yourself, but you want to start literally keeping a list. I mean, you want to write these down because it's the starting point for where you're going to start mapping out, okay, now what do I want to say about this problem? How do I want to create stuff that attracts other people who have this problem? So you got to make the list first. It's like making the shopping list, right? If I'm going to go to the grocery store, it sure helps to have a list of what I actually need.
And in theory, think about it if you were poor and you had no money. What would you put first on that shopping list? And I know it's a touchy subject, but if you think about it in those terms, because most of us business owners think of it that we're rich and the fact that we can solve all of these problems, that we have, I'll say, quote unquote, unlimited time and unlimited resources, unlimited this and unlimited that. So we don't want to limit ourselves to a specific client problem. And sometimes that becomes a challenge because when you market to everybody, you end up marketing to nobody.
Right.
So from this, to kind of wrap this little piece up here, this small piece up, the first thing you do is first thing after you've identified your ideal client is you look at what problem did they come in and present with, or what was the first thing that they brought to you. And then the second thing is you look at, of those, what are you best at solving? So really, we've given you two steps here. Step one is identify all of the initial things that brought your ideal client to you. And step two is, what of those do you really enjoy doing? And then I'll say step three is, of the ones you really enjoy doing, what are you the best at? What can you start to differentiate yourself from everybody else at doing? In fact, I heard, and I won't, because if the person whose commercial this is would like to advertise on the Professional Practice Builder Society, we would love for you to contact us and we'll get it. But I heard a guy that's describing himself something close to basically the poop doctor. And he is going out and advertising. He is the only guy certified in Pennsylvania to do some new oncological procedure. I was riding my bike the other day and I heard this and I'm like, that's brilliant. I mean, it's exactly what we're talking about.
It's attention getting, isn't it?
Well, and it's kind of, and I partly now I'm forgetting the website, but the whole point is he's niching down, and whether he loves to do that or not, he might just love to do it, which is it's okay. I mean, there's because let's face it, a lot of oncologists like to do stuff because they want to save people's lives. So plain and simple. But here's the thing of it. First, to kind of wrap this piece up, one, what was the initial presenting thing, or what did your ideal client come to you for initially? Two, what of those do you really love to do? And three, what of those that you love to do can you differentiate yourself from other people? Now, here's the key. Once you go through this three-step process, you're going to have one of two things happen. Actually, I'll say one of three. The last one probably is not going to happen quite often. You're either going to have nothing on the list, you're going to have a boatload of stuff on the list, or you're going to find one thing on the list. My guess is you're probably going to have a few things on the list, but if you have nothing on the list, then what you want to do is, you want to redo this process with not the initial presenting factor from your ideal client, but what your ideal clients are having you work on right now. In other words, your ideal client comes to you for a certain thing, but that thing might change over time. And what you might be missing if you can't fill your practice is the fact that your ideal clients have changed over time, and now what you thought you originally were going to have and what you thought you were originally going to be known for, you're doing something completely different. And when that happens, you're going to find that out very quickly by going back to your initial list, paring it down to what you love, paring it down to what you can differentiate yourself with, and then seeing what's left on your list. If you come up with zero, then redo this process by starting with what you're handling for your clients now and move forward. Right, Dr. Mark?
Absolutely, but if you come up with zero, I'm going to be very worried about you because you're going to be out of business. No, you're solving problems, so there's going to be stuff on the list, and you're going to start to narrow in on that. And don't worry because you're going to get to do more than one problem. We're just trying to give you that starting point of identifying the first one you're going to build around. And stay tuned for the next couple of episodes as we flesh out the rest of the IDAP system and get you to really be producing some really great content that your ideal client wants to find, wants to consume, wants to engage with, so that they can discover the expert that you really are.
Yeah, but and the thing of it is, if they come up with zero after going through it twice, then I'd be very concerned, and then I would. Well, but here's the thing.
Give me a call at that point.
Well, if you go through, and I'm going to take about 10, 15 seconds to wrap this up, and then we will kind of wrap our segment up and introduce our special guest for tonight. If you come up with zero both times, one of two things is going on. Either one, you are in the wrong business and you need to find something else. And I say that in all sincerity because what it could signal is that you're not handling the problems you love, you're not handling the things that can differentiate you, and it might be a reason why your business is struggling. Excuse me. So, but there could be other reasons why you come up with zero. If for some reason you go through this exercise and come up with zero twice, please reach out to Dr. Mark and myself so we can actually take a look at, so we can help you and take a look at your business and find out, did you miss something? Or are you really going in the wrong direction, in a direction that might sustain you for a short time, but will never sustain you for the rest of your life? Now, when we put this episode together, we said, look, once people identify their ideal client's problems, they're going to have to start even before even before going through the rest of the IDAP, define, articulate, and package. They're going to have to start getting their name out about the problems. And the best way to start about the problems they solve, and the best way to start doing that is start to tweak your LinkedIn profile and your LinkedIn headline, because people still use LinkedIn as a great search engine to find people they want to connect with, find
Absolutely.
people they might want to partner with, and find people they want to be with. So what we did was we reached out to fellow Professional Practice Builders Society member and head of Chatterbox social media, Hannah Tai, and we asked her to come on and beginning this month, start to do this monthly segment where she comes on and has a has a piece of the show, so to speak. So Hannah, welcome. You're on
Hi,
at this
guys.
point.
Hello.
Hi. Hi, everyone.
So
welcome aboard.
Go ahead and introduce yourself, Hannah.
Thank you. Well, guys, everyone, I'm here tonight to help you to connect with your ideal audience a little bit better on LinkedIn and on the web. So hopefully you're going to learn some great things tonight, and looking forward to it.
Cool.
And let's face it, Mark, she makes this adds a better look to the show, because I don't know. I mean, I've been getting this feedback that the bald-headed guy and the long-haired hippie freak, it just, it needed to add I told you, Hannah, one of these days I'm going to actually get you to blush.
I think it's starting to happen right now.
Woohoo! I have achieved my goal for today. Anyway, enough about me. Hannah, when we brought you on, we wanted to talk about the LinkedIn profile, but specifically the headline. And you had some great ideas about what people should do right now, even while they're starting to develop their ideal client and the problems and everything else. So why don't you tell our audience a little bit about that?
Okay, sure. So LinkedIn is, it used to be kind of like people would think it was a resume service where people would just put their resume up there and it was just like a billboard, right? But it's really not like that. Actually, it's a really vibrant community, and it's just like going to a networking event. So you really want to take the time to, tweak your headline and your profile photo so that you're connecting with people, right? Because when you go to a networking event, you have a couple seconds to actually make an impression where you're going to connect with somebody. And it's just doing that. That's all that you do on LinkedIn, is you're looking at your ideal client, which if you've been working with Dr. Mark and Chris here, you've learned a little bit more about who they are and what their pain is. And you're just taking your headline and you're tweaking it so that you are attractive to them. Mm-hmm. So instead of you just being a realtor in the sea of realty, when someone types in realtor, you don't want to be a realtor. You want to focus in on that problem that your client is looking to fix.
Hmm. Absolutely, and I think people really need to focus on LinkedIn so much more than they realize, because I mean it's so well ranked at this point. So,
It
uh,
is. It's actually the first thing, unless you're a felon, it's the very first thing if someone types in, your name, that's the very first thing that pops up about you. So how
right.
are you showing up in search, in Google, let alone in LinkedIn? You want to kind of think of it almost like duck, duck, goose. Like how are you going to really pop out and attract people to want to connect with you?
Right, absolutely. And in all seriousness, I mean, I'm somebody who creates a lot of content, and no matter what I've done to optimize my content, LinkedIn is number one if I search my name.
Right,
So
absolutely.
if you're going to start somewhere, if you've been hesitating to get involved in social media, LinkedIn is clearly the number one place to start.
It is. I mean, I can just tell you that you can get so many PR opportunities out of it. There are so many actual business money generating opportunities that happen there all day, every day, as opposed to, when you go on Facebook where you have to weed through all sorts of stuff, even if your post actually gets seen. So it's really so much more effective.
Yeah.
And it all starts with your picture, really, because we're humans, right? So 90% of our information is all visual. That's how we connect with people. So you don't want to be the guy with, the parrot, or going back to the realtor example, you don't want to be like grumpy Gus, because no one wants to sit in for hours in a car with someone who's like, where
Yeah.
their profile picture. So the very first tip that I would give is make sure that your profile picture is really professional and you're staring at the camera. So you're really trying to connect with that person, right?
Yeah, no, really, and you want it, it's not expensive, and it's really worth paying a professional to do some decent headshots. A lot of photographers in this day and age have social media packages that they'll do with you for very little income. But you definitely don't want to be the empty silhouette on there either, because it kind of just makes people say, okay, well, this person really is not engaged in their LinkedIn, so I'm not going to bother connecting with this person. And the
Right,
other
they're
thing
not
also,
professional.
yeah, well, and the other thing I always tell people is, in this day and age, because social media is so powerful, your headshot is your logo. No matter how much you've spent in your graphic design to get a fancy logo, but your headshot is your logo.
Exactly, exactly. So you want to make sure, and again, you want to make sure that you're really showcasing a little bit about your personality. You want to be really warm and approachable, because people are coming to solve their problems with you, right? They're going to use your expertise to solve whatever issue that they're having in their business, in their life, whatever. So you want to give off that impression. So that's the first thing that you want to really focus on, because that is your personal calling card. Your headshot and your LinkedIn headline is going to show up on LinkedIn search, it's going to show up on Google, and it's going to show up throughout the groups. And in the groups and the interaction, having that with that nice, beautiful headline that showcases what you do and how you help is what's going to entice people to connect to you, as opposed to your competitor.
And
So if
Yeah,
Go
and I
ahead.
was going to say, Hannah, and also doesn't it really boil down to your ideal client as well? Meaning the picture. I mean,
Exactly.
for me, I wouldn't want a parrot sitting on my shoulder, but if you're a juggler, let's say, like I met some jugglers from Delaware, they have a very
Right.
unique picture, and they have a very
Sure.
unique persona in the whole nine yards. In fact, it's even interesting, even with, I'll use my LinkedIn picture. I mean, I've over time switched it, and I think I've gotten the best response out of the one that's up there currently. And it happens to be one of the shots of me on stage, but it's a nice blue background. And it's something
Right.
where, it looks, other than the fact that people say, if you look at it a little wider, it's like a cross in the background. It's kind of a bizarre, and it actually was done when I was doing LeaderCast last year to church. So it's kind of an interesting, it's kind of an interesting message, but you're so right, and I wish that I would have had somebody like you tell me that early on, because when I first started doing the LinkedIn profile and everything else, my pictures were all over the map. They were people, me outside, me in front of a fence, me this, me that. And I never realized what that was costing me. So for those of you on the line today, and for those of you watching the recording, the first tip that Hannah just gave you is incredibly important. Get a great headshot. Put it on the top of your list. Get a great professional headshot. And if your look changes, you need to make sure your headshot changes with your look. I'm a great example. When I just started doing headshots, I had short hair. If I had that LinkedIn headshot now and people were looking for that, and all of a sudden I walked in, it would take them back, if they didn't watch my YouTube videos. So we have about 5-6 minutes left on the show. Hannah,
Okay.
let's get into your next tip, which is really
Sure.
the headline.
Absolutely. So with the headline, you want to talk a little bit about who you are, who you serve, right, your ideal client, and how you actually help them. So maybe think about 2 or 3 keywords that people would search for someone with your expertise for their problem under, and then like what they're going to get from working with you, okay, is kind of that value statement. That so what? Why do I care? So instead of you being a realtor, maybe you want to say like Tampa Bay realtor, short sale and foreclosure expert. If you have identified that you really love working with investors, let's say, okay, and you know that those keywords, short sale or foreclosure. So you would say something like Tampa Bay realtor, short sale expert, your investment property negotiator and advisor, or something like that. So you're just trying to explain to them what you do to help solve their problem.
Mm-hmm.
So
That makes
that's a
sense.
lot more effective than realtor. And
Right, because I mean, let's face it. If you're wasting that real estate to just list your category, then you're just really kind of putting yourself out there almost like a commodity. If my tagline just says attorney, well, okay, there's a lot of attorneys, right? So give me more. Now, Hannah, how much space do you actually have in that tagline?
you have 120 characters. So
Okay.
what I would say is, you can break that up with some Unicode symbols, and that also really helps you to pop out.
I always wondered how
So,
people did that.
yeah, and there is actually a little website that you can highlight and copy and paste, the different little funky
Okay.
symbols, so whatever, you want to use. But again, you're focusing in on who your target client is. So you've identified that you love working with, investors as opposed to, first-time home buyers or whatever. And it just allows people, instead of you showing up in the sea of realtors, it allows you to pop.
Mm-hmm. That makes total sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you shouldn't waste the space saying, I actually I got to go back now. I got to go back and look at mine because I think I have like founder of, whatever the website is.
Right.
So probably wasted characters
Exactly.
since I've only got 120 to work with. They're precious characters.
Right. So you don't want to have like CEO or owner, like owner. Who cares?
Right. Because no one's searching for an owner, right?
No one's searching for an owner. That doesn't tell me anything. It's not telling me how you're going to help me. So you really want to take that time. Or, even like an accountant, instead of saying, tax accountant, you might want to say a tax accountant, CPA, specializing in revenue, business with revenues from 1 million to 5 million or something like that,
It's
so
a lot more meaningful information for me to recognize whether this is the right person for me. Otherwise, you're making it harder for me to go dig for more detail. If I'm kind of skimming my local area for a local CPA, and I'm a real estate investor, and you've got some of those keywords in that tagline, you're making my life so much easier, right? So.
Exactly.
Cool.
So, and don't be afraid to, have a little bit of your personality in there, and, you can play with it a little to, showcase really who you are and how you help.
It's a good point. So I don't really want to just say, oh my gosh, I only have 120 characters, so let me just like pack in comma delimited keywords and have it be illegible, right? I mean that probably doesn't serve my audience very well, right?
Exactly, because again, it's people, are connecting to human beings, not robots, So you want to make sure that you are showcasing that you are a human being, you're going to take an active interest in your ideal client, and you understand what their pain point is, and you can solve it, and you have expertise in it.
Cool.
Which is exactly what you guys talk about.
Very helpful stuff. So we're going to have Hannah back, Chris, to do some more, because there's a lot more to talk about LinkedIn, and we're just scratching the surface for now.
Yeah, exactly. And for those of you who are watching this live or even recorded, our goal right now is the first Wednesday of every month to have Hannah back on with some more great LinkedIn tips and strategies and things you can really, actionable items that you can take away right then and there to go improve your LinkedIn profile and improve your standing and get more people to find you. For tonight, to kind of wrap up Hannah's section, for tonight, the first key thing is get a great profile picture so that when people look at you and when people find you, they can start to resonate with you. The second tip is start to look at your LinkedIn headline and make sure that if you were, let me say it this way, if you were looking for a job, then putting former CEO works very well. But since you're looking for clients, that does not go very well in your LinkedIn headline. The key to having a great LinkedIn headline, and Hannah, I love it, I agree with it. The key to having a great LinkedIn headline is start with your ideal client's problems and how you can kind of solve them so that when they're looking for somebody, they will find you. And that's where the key comes in, that you end up identifying your ideal client's problems. Because if you get down to the one problem you solve and you are able to carefully articulate that in your LinkedIn headline, then you're going to be able to attract your ideal client.
Excellent. Good stuff.
Excellent. We're basically out of time. Hannah, is there anything else you want to say to our viewers before we wrap up tonight?
No, just thanks so much for having me, guys. This was so much fun.
Excellent.
Cool.
Well, Hannah's the URL for Hannah's site, Chatterbox. Yes, Chatterbox social media. I always, this is why I need systems, Dr. Mark, because even a good friend like Hannah, I screw up every now and then. So Chatterbox social media. The link is on the screen.
It's on the screen,
bottom, right underneath her beautiful picture and her name there. So we want you to reach out to Hannah if you need any help with LinkedIn. And Dr. Mark, any last words for our audience tonight?
Our usual last word, which is, hey, if we're giving you some good tips, we're giving you some good value, make sure you're coming over to ppbsociety.com and you get on our mailing list, because otherwise you might forget about next week's show and you might miss out on how to define and expand. So you want to get on the mailing list so you get the notifications and the reminders, and you can also get access to replays and cool stuff like that. So join us on the mailing list and become, a follower.
Exactly. And next Wednesday, we're going to have another show. And next Wednesday, we're going to talk about, as Dr. Mark said, defining. Defining. Go ahead, say that again, Dr. Mark. Define.
We've identified the problem. Now we're going to define both the problem and the desired outcome that you're going to help this client achieve. So, in focusing on that problem. So we'll dig into defining the ideal outcome.
Excellent. And we will also have a very special guest that will focus on a different social media channel, but You're going to have to kind of tune back in to find out who that special guest will be. Cliffhanger. Dum dum.
Cliffhanger. Love it.
and until next time.
What they said.
No, what he said. Have a great night, folks.
Take care.